There's certainly no shortage of evil in this world, and these people are here to show us that. Buckle up, friends, this one's not for the faint of heart. Here are the top 10 real people too evil for Alcatraz prison. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Tommy Lynn Sells. Tommy Lynn Sells was an American serial killer who is responsible for 22 confirmed deaths, but authorities have said that they know there are more. I actually watched an interview that he did, and one of the aspects that scared me the most while watching him talk about his crimes is how you can tell that he committed these acts because he wanted to, and because he liked it. In the end, Tommy was caught because of someone who survived his attack in the most incredible way. She was able to go on and give such a good description of him that it led to his capture, and she was able to positively identify him. Not only did she save her own life, but who knows how many others. In the end, Tommy and his crimes were deemed so horrific that he received the death sentence and was executed on April 3rd, 2014. In our number 9 spot today, we have Sam Little. Sam Little is well known for being one of the worst serial killers ever. He's confessed to taking the lives of more than 90 people, and while authorities have only been able to definitively connect him to 30, they say they have no reason to doubt the validity of any of his other confessions. Sam was able to continue on his horrible path for so many years because of the fact that he committed these crimes in different states and different counties, which made it more difficult to connect these crimes to one another. In an interview with an investigator named Sergeant LeBlanc, as they discussed religious beliefs, they spoke about the nature of sin. Sam stated he had no fear of God and said that God made him this way, so why should he ask for forgiveness? He said that God knew everything he did. He also allegedly told a few select people that he believed he was the devil. In our number 8 spot today, we have Vincenzo Verzenni. Vincenzo lived from 1849 to 1918, and he was a serial killer who was nicknamed the Vampire of Bergamo. The first of his victims was found in 1870, and when authorities examined the body, they found bite marks on the neck, as well as certain parts of the body missing. The next of his victims he didn't end up taking the life of, but he tried to bite their neck. In 1872, there was the next body of one of his victims that was found, and it had all the strange and disturbing signs that the previous one had. After Vincenzo was arrested, he confessed to his crimes with the added detail that he also chose to drink the blood of his victims before leaving their bodies. Somehow, Vincenzo managed to escape the death penalty after a vote of sympathy from only one juror, and he instead was sentenced to life in an asylum. In our number 7 spot today, we have Daria Saltykova. Daria was a Russian noblewoman and serial killer from Moscow. She became well known for killing many of her serfs, mostly women. Because of her ties to the Russian royal court and other Russian nobility, complaints about the deaths at her estate were initially ignored and only resulted in punishments for those who did the complaining. Eventually, however, relatives of those who had been killed were able to bring a petition to Empress Catherine II, who then decided to try Daria publicly. Investigations took 6 long years, where the investigating official counted up to 138 suspicious deaths, basically all of which could likely be attributed to Daria. In the end, she was found guilty of 38 of these crimes, but the Empress wasn't quite sure what the punishment should be, as the death penalty had already been abolished in Russia. In the end, Daria was chained on a public platform and made to wear a sign around her neck that detailed the crimes she committed. After this form of punishment, she was sent to jail to serve out her life sentence. In our number 6 spot today, we have Herta Oberhauser. Herta was a German physician and convicted war criminal who performed absolutely horrific medical atrocities on prisoners at Ravensbrück Women's Concentration Camp. She was known for being a part of medical experiments like treating purposely infected wounds with sulfonamide, as well as bone, muscle, and nerve regeneration and transplantation. Herta was the only female that was a defendant in the Nuremberg doctor trials, and she was convicted for crimes against humanity, but was only sentenced to 20 years in prison. She was released early for good behavior and ended up becoming a family doctor again in West Germany. That was, however, until a survivor recognized her. Herta then had her medical license revoked, and then she was fined. She tried to appeal, but was rejected and never practiced medicine again. I think we can all probably be grateful for that. In our number 5 spot today, we have Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth was a Hungarian noblewoman who lived from August of 1560 to August of 1614. While she was born into one of the oldest and most powerful families in Transylvania and was well educated and successful, she also was killing young women and bathing in their blood. Okay, buried the lead on that one. Sorry about that. Elizabeth has gone down as one of the most evil women in history because she was taking the lives of women who were her servants, and she was bathing in their blood because she believed it would keep her young. There's something that's telling me that it probably didn't work. Anyway, instead of being remembered as youthful and beautiful, Elizabeth is instead remembered as being a terrible, evil person who took the lives of somewhere from 175 to 200 women, but some accounts swear the number might be as high as 600. In our number 4 spot today, we have Charles Cullen. This guy used to be a nurse who took the lives of his patients throughout his career, and he may be one of the worst serial killers ever recorded. He confessed to taking the lives of 40 people, but through subsequent interviews, it became apparent that the number was way higher than 40. He just couldn't remember the names of them all. But he could, of course, remember the details of his crimes against them. His crimes started in 1988 and spanned over a decade into 2003. In October of 2003, when a patient at a hospital passed away from low blood sugar, the authorities were called. This person was Charles' final victim, and authorities began looking into him and investigating his past employment history. On December 12, 2003, authorities were arresting him and charging him with only one count of his crimes, but he ended up admitting to 40. He ended up pleading guilty to his crimes and arranged a plea deal where authorities would not seek the death penalty if he cooperated. During one of his court proceedings, he continuously asked the judge to step down and apparently repeatedly chanted, quote, "Your Honor, you need to step down," for 25 minutes straight, even after he was restrained and gagged for his outbursts. It is thought that his victims might be up in the 400 range, which is truly unbelievable. Charles was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences and will be eligible for parole in 2403. In our number 3 spot today, we have Charles Manson. While there are a ton of evil people on this list today, Charles is likely one of the most famous for the absolute worst reasons. Manson was released from prison in 1967, where he then moved to San Francisco, and that's where he gained a small following that would eventually go on to be the cult known as The Family. The group eventually moved to an abandoned ranch outside of Los Angeles, and it was here that Manson continued to brainwash his followers and manipulate them with his own religious philosophies. Manson claimed that there would be an upcoming race war in which white people would be killed, which was intended to instill fear in his followers. This was so that he could ignite a race war and send his followers on a killing spree, which did end up being the night of the horrible Tate and LaBianca killings. This led to a reign of terror in the Los Angeles area for several months because people just couldn't understand how or why this happened. In our number 2 spot today, we have Randy Kraft. Also known as the Scorecard Killer, Randy is a monster who took the lives of at least 16 young men between 1972 and 1983. The Scorecard nickname comes from how, after his arrest, police found a coded list that contained cryptic references to his crimes and the victims. On May 14, 1983, 2 California Highway Patrol officers observed a car driving erratically and suspected the driver may be impaired, so they pulled it over. Once the car pulled over, Randy Kraft got out and identified himself and subsequently failed all field sobriety tests. At the same time, the other officer went over to the passenger's side where he sadly found Randy's final victim, 25-year-old Marine Terry Lee Gambrell. The next 2 days of investigation revealed the horrors of what Kraft had done, and on May 16, 1983, he was formally charged with the one crime, but many more charges came in the next months. His trial first began on September 26, 1988, and on August 11, 1989, the jury rendered a verdict of death, and the sentence was upheld. As of this year, he still remains on death row at San Quentin State Prison, where he continues to deny any responsibility for the crimes. Like they didn't find one of the victims in the passenger seat of his car. In our number 1 spot today, we have Peter Tobin. Peter Tobin is a serial killer who was convicted for 3 separate crimes, but it is believed his crimes may actually be up in the range of 40 to 50. Before being convicted of these crimes, Peter also served another 10-year prison sentence for other crimes committed, and he was released from prison for those crimes in 2004. 3 years later, however, he was sentenced to life with a minimum of 21 years for taking the life of Angelica Kluk in 2006. After this, remains of 2 more people who went missing in in 1991 were found in his former home, and he was also tried for these crimes, which ended up solidifying his sentence to a whole life order, which means he will never be up for parole. There are some who believe Tobin is responsible for more unsolved crimes, and he has been labeled a psychopath by a senior psychologist. Apparently, while in prison, he has boasted about taking the lives of 48 people, despite the fact that he's only officially been linked to 3. So hopefully at some point we'll be able to actually confirm those other crimes that he's been talking about. Guys, that's been our list for today. Whoo-wee, these people sure suck. But you don't. I'm just trying to, geez Louise, lighten the mood a little bit. Anyway, I'm done, so I'm gonna go. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you again sometime soon. Okay, goodbye.